What is up, sports fans? Welcome back to another episode of Pez's Picks. I'm your host, Jeff Hartman, joined by the man with the picks, Pez, who is, he's incognito a little bit today. Pez, how's it going?
Jeff, we're on such a heater. We're frying the local internet. We got some technical difficulties. Cam's down today, but the winners are still rolling, and the audio should be 100%, Jeff. I mean, that's all we really need.
Yeah, because really, you just need the picks. You don't need to see his face as he's making the picks. You just need to know
That's
the
it.
picks. And so let's start off with the fact that you are on one hell of a heater in Major League Baseball, as you are 8 in a row. 8 in a row. Now, last week, you had done okay in Major League Baseball post All-Star break, but you were hovering around 500. Since then, boy, have we skyrocketed above that. Why don't you go ahead and talk about your latest run?
Well, first of all, Jeff, I'm in contact with the FFS and legal department as I do a lot. I feel the casinos are attacking my internet. They're trying to shut us down, Jeff, because we're giving so much money away. Not going to happen. We're not going to let it in. I'm bringing some tech guys in, some guys from the Matrix. We got it taken care of. So we've been rolling, Jeff. I think we're back about 63% still now since the All Star break. So it's pushing us over 60% on the year, and we can get to 70. We're going to be happy. Jeff, I don't know. I kind of feel, I'm probably screwing myself here, but there appear to be games that you're getting lines on with discounts you should not, where you're getting pitchers that are top notch, top five guys in the league, and you're getting them for even money, or you're getting free money sometimes. And you wonder, is there so much action going into these games now that they're trying to keep things a little more balanced, and they are trying to give themselves an advantage with lines and money lines. Like last night, and I screwed the guy, Jeff, where we took the Giants last night, and we're taping on Wednesday, so this is happening Tuesday night, and we take one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball right now, Logan Webb. The guy was at 29 innings without a home run. I know he gave up a couple last night, so I screwed him. But that guy, pitched another gem, and we got him at about plus 105, even money. And at this time of year, when you have a better hitting team with the Giants and one of the best pitchers, he's probably the best pitcher in August. I mean, the guy's been lights out. So we're just jumping on these opportunities where the risk is minimal and the reward is fantastic. When you've got a Logan Webb up against a rookie, Jeff. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on here, but the last 2 weeks we've been seeing a lot of these things, and our data says when you've got a significant pitching hitting advantage and you're getting it for free money or even money, that's what we're looking for. And that we've been hot, Jeff. We're loving it.
So since you're on a heater, how do you handle that? Do you just keep the pedal down, or do you still just say, "Hey, let's pump the brakes. Let's take our time. Let's still do the algorithm." And I know with baseball, you're going to make smart picks no matter what. But do you have anything coming up that you like, or are you just going to play it as it comes?
So, and that's a good point, Jeff. You always got to check yourself. So, and these aren't just picks. These are using the same system we've been using all year. We tweaked a little bit around the All-Stars. But at this time of the year, pitching is just so pivotal, and you're seeing some guys getting in more pitches and more innings, and you're seeing some younger guys who, like last night was a great example. I mean, these guys are getting tired. They're young. They haven't pitched 25, 30 games in a year. So, power pitchers losing velocity is what we're looking to go up against as a hitting team. And there are power pitchers that are, they're kind of just letting it all out now, Jeff, where nowadays there's a lot of metrics involved. You've got these guys that they keep pitch count down, inning count down, but come late August when we're looking at the playoffs here, that's it. They're throwing them out there like we used to 20, 25 years ago when they were probably getting a little injection help. But guys that go 8, 9 innings in a regular season, throw 110 pitches wasn't a big deal. So we're starting to see that. And when the data's there and the risk versus reward, is hitting where we want minimal risk. We're not taking teams at minus 300. When you're getting a significant data based advantage at a minimal price, then we're jumping on it. So anytime we see that, whether it's one game, 2 games, 5 days in a row, or we might take 5 days off, we're going to jump on that, and that's how we're going to be rolling out this baseball.
All right, so no particular plays right now. Obviously, you want to check out Pez's social media handles on Twitter, X, and on Instagram at Pez's Picks. But are there any other plays that you're looking for in the upcoming days in baseball?
There's some pitchers I really like, Jeff. I love I love the Yankees, but we're getting situations where they're blowing games 2-1. Um, Boston is a team that we're looking at to come on strong towards the end, and Seattle's a team that we're going to continually bet against, Jeff. They can't hit the ball. They've got solid pitching, but when you can't hit the ball in August, when I think pitching gets tighter in big games, you're going to struggle more and more. When you're batting 216, there's no reason not to bet against Seattle on a regular basis, Jeff. And I think Boston today, we're taping Wednesday. We're looking at Bello tonight. He's a scrappy pitcher. His numbers aren't great, but there's situational pitchers where teams hit better. And, we're not getting them at the discount we want with the line. We're going to watch that throughout the day. Today, right now, it's about plus 140. We get that down to plus 120 against Toronto. Not a great hitting team. That's the kind of situation we're looking at. And, we'll be taking a look every day. And it almost seems to start figuring out easier one season coming to an end, baseball, Jeff. And then we're jumping into college football, which is it's like putting a Rubik's Cube together. I always hated those kids in the 80s. They could put that stupid cube together. My favorite memory, Jeff, of the Rubik's Cube, walking to parties, some nerd puts it together, puts it down on the table. One of my best friends ever, Jeff, he walks up, he smashed it against the wall. It was like an Animal House smashing the guitar scene, Jeff. So that's what college football is at right now. It's a Rubik's Cube, Jeff. It's ridiculous what they're doing to gamblers out there. College football should be sued at every level.
Well, I don't know. Where did you go to college that you were going to parties where people had Rubik's cubes? I went
Well,
through 4 years. I was the president of my fraternity for 2 of those 4. I never once went to a party where a Rubik's cube was anywhere in sight.
I th- I think this was a high school party, Jeff. And I growing up in South Jersey, when you grew up right over the bridge, you can get to another town in about 5 minutes. So every weekend we had 5 to 10 different high school party towns we could go to, and we traveled a lot, Jeff. The 80s and 90s
Yeah.
were all about getting in the car. I think it was one of those situations, and luckily I grew up in a town where a guy could smash a guy's Rubik's cube, and I wasn't worried about getting beat up, Jeff. It wasn't me. But these guys were animals, and some of these Catholic school towns are a little softer, Jeff. So we took advantage of South Jersey people appreciate Camden Catholic, Paul VI, some soft schools, Jeff. We took advantage of them, and it worked out well.
There you go. Now, I have to remind myself every time we get ready for college football, unlike the NFL, you talked about the Rubik's Cube, and it is confusing and it can be difficult with the transfer portal and all the different changes that are made every year. But the spreads are just always insane in college football because you get those homecoming games where Alabama's playing the good sisters of the poor and they're spotting 75 points, it feels like. You don't see those spreads as much, I don't feel like, in the National Football League. So before we even talk about your picks this week, I'm looking at week 1, which is still a big week in college football, a lot of marquee matchups, but some really big spreads. Do you tend to shy away from those?
Well, we're trying to calibrate a new system, Jeff, with the way the leagues and everything changes every year. Who's in the Big Ten? Who's in the SEC? So Big East, what is that? So, I think early on, you try to lean on chalk teams, top 5, top 10 teams who are going to have stability and talent. They're not losing a lot of guys, but we saw last week with Florida State. They brought in a new quarterback. The guy started in SEC, then he went out west, and he didn't look ready for that game, Jeff. And we had a big upset with Georgia Tech. We're kicking ourselves for not taking that team. It was one of our favorite teams last year. But we're going to bank on blue chip teams that are 3-4 deep in every position. And we're going to have to wait and see how some of these other coaching and some of these other transfer situations work out. Just because a guy was good or a good prospect doesn't mean he's going to transfer to a team and he's going to light it up. I mean, that just doesn't equate. So I like teams that are bringing guys back, guys that have been in their system, and where you have a coaching change, and I'm going to kick myself for saying this. We're taking a team where we had a head coaching change, Jeff. But that's something to look at too. Who's coming in, who's leaving, and what I think some of these teams, they got a lot to prove in game one. Game one, if you drop that game like Florida State did last week, you're behind the 8 ball all year. They lose another game, who knows? They might not make this playoff. And you're not making the playoff anymore, Jeff. You're not getting blue chip players. So we've expanded the playoffs. It's all about getting in that playoff now. They're going to have a kind of little March Madness college football. I don't know if it's going to work out and be entertaining or whatever, but that is the goal right now. You don't get in that. You're not recruiting guys. It's almost like, I hate to bring soccer into this, Jeff, but if your team doesn't make the Champions League, you ain't getting some big time players. They want to be on TV, and that's what we're looking at here.
Well, I think too, you talk about the expansion of the playoff system. Now that's 12 teams that get in. I think that this is going to make, for a gambling perspective, things a lot more interesting down the stretch. Where, let's take example, week 0 last week over in Ireland, Georgia Tech upsets Florida State. And in the past, Florida State would say, we're done. Like, we're only playing for another significant bowl game. But now they have plenty of time to get themselves together, win some games. And then if they finish the rest of their games in undefeated fashion, they're going to make those top 12 teams. And so they still have a chance to make it into the postseason. It's going to be interesting how this expanded format impacts not just the game, but the gambling aspect of things. But I want to ask you, Pez, or did you have anything to touch on with that?
Well, that Florida State game, Jeff, should send shockwaves throughout gambling in college football. Georgia Tech, that line just looked fishy, 13 and a half, I think it was. And, I talked about it with some guys. Had it not been in Ireland, I'd have been all over it, Jeff. Who the hell knows how teams handle traveling to Ireland, let alone a pro team, let alone a college team, Jeff, where I read they had to get like 112 passports. So, and I think Georgia Tech handled that much better. Coaching was fantastic. And they brought in this new young D coordinator to Georgia Tech, whose defense kind of sucked last year. Unbelievable, Jeff. Why didn't Florida State just pound the ball? They outweighed by 1,000 pounds the Georgia Tech defensive line. So I think early on you're going to get coaches that have snuck up into these big time positions, young guys, and kind of sneak up on people. And it's something you got to go in lightly in college football, especially with all the changes now. And that's kind of conservative early.
So you just said a few minutes ago that you're going to lean towards, at least early on, the teams that didn't lose a lot. They didn't have a head coaching change. They didn't see a ton of players jettison the program. And yeah, we're going to take one of those teams that had both of those things happen this past offseason. But who are the teams that would fit that criteria? So for me, I look at Ohio State. Ohio State had probably the lowest number of drafted players in the NFL draft, maybe in the last 20 years. Why? They all came back. They all wanted to play again. They all wanted to get that taste out of their mouths. They want to beat Michigan. They want to win a national title. They have almost their full allotment of core players returning in this season, and they keep their coach Ryan Day. Are there any other college teams that you can think of off the top of your head that would also fit that criteria?
So, we focus a lot, Jeff, on the quarterback, pro and college. You can't win with a quarterback turning the ball over and a quarterback that can be kind of pushed in one direction or the other. So, when we're talking about teams and coaches, I like teams that are coming in with stability and are coming in with some experience and are coming in with guys that are returning. In Ohio State, I watched a lot of them last year, Jeff, and that defense was fantastic. But the quarterback position on that team made them vulnerable. I can remember watching with my son the Michigan game, and they just couldn't move that ball. I wonder without Harrison how bad it's going to be, Jeff. So I know they got a lot of guys returning. Pez's Picks is not rating them high for success this year. I wonder where the offense is going to come from. They barely had any. I mean, if it wasn't for Harrison, they'd have nothing. When we look at some of these teams, and you can dig into their rosters too. When you've got freshmen at wide receiver or running back compared to seniors, and these guys could be 24, 25 years old now. So, there's a lot that comes into play with returning, and the quarterback position is pivotal. I love Oregon this year, Jeff. I think, people might hate me for saying this, but I think you could even have an upgrade at quarterback this year. This kid is fantastic. Bo Nix was great too as a college quarterback. The guy was lights out. I'm not so sold on NFL. Well, that's a later conversation. But at Oregon, quarterback position might be better. At Georgia, some of these teams I think are going to be better. Georgia, Alabama, and then some of these other ones, we're going to have to really dig deep and watch some early tape on them, Jeff.
All right. Well, you bring up the Oregon and the Pac-12, which is no longer, which is really, really weird to me.
I don't even know what it is, Jeff. Right? What are you calling it?
I think, is it part of the Big 12? I don't know. I
It's
don't know why they
unbelievable.
just don't do regional areas. And then those 4 regions, however they're constructed, they have representatives go into the playoffs. I think it would be a lot easier. But nonetheless, let's get to our picks for college football. We're talking about SEC. We have the defunct we got a pick from the debunked Pac-12. But let's start on Saturday at 12 o'clock. The Georgia Bulldogs in an SEC versus ACC matchup face the Clemson Tigers. Clemson, boy, it just seems like that program has fallen off the face of the earth since Trevor Lawrence left. And Clemson is on the road. Georgia's at home. Georgia's spotting 2 touchdowns, a 14-point spread. You say it doesn't matter. Take the Georgia Bulldogs minus 14. What's your thoughts here, Pez?
When we start looking at this, Jeff, the line hasn't moved too much. 13.5 at open. If you can get it 13.5, I like it even better. I, I can't believe I'm saying this, Jeff, but I think Georgia's a better team. I think that coming back, the amount of talent that they have, I mean, back at quarterback, you've got, a little bit of a question mark at running back, but I mean, there's no way Georgia's not going to have a dynamic running back. Whoever's getting that ball, forgetting about, injury and drama going on a little bit in running back situation there. But senior wide receivers, Jeff, I think there's 4 or 5 of them that have, decent numbers from having played. I think the defense is going to be better, which is scary. And I'm not a Clemson fan, Jeff. I know they burned us once or twice. All good gamblers remember the games that got burned. We got burned royally by stupid Cade Klubenik last year in Clemson, Jeff. I'm not a fan. He's experienced, but I think he forces the ball in situations when his team's outmatched. And I can see a lot of turnovers for Georgia and then putting a stamp on it, right, Jeff? I mean, they come out, they're playing a ranked team, game 1. That takes balls, Jeff. I love that. I love teams that come out and play, tough teams. And I mean, they're going to be at home, so it's going to be in hot Atlanta. I think everything points to Georgia, big blowout win. I don't see any why we're not taking that, Jeff. No reason why.
All right. Hey, 14 points. Like I said, that's a lot. That's a lot on the line in a week 1 game, but I trust your opinion here. Let's go to Saturday at 7 p.m. The Alabama Crimson Tide host. This is one of those homecoming games that I always talk about. Western Kentucky and Alabama is spotting 31 points. I think I read that correctly, didn't I, Pez? I didn't. I don't have dyslexia all of a sudden, and it was 13.
I think it's up to 33 now, Jeff.
Goodness gracious.
I think it's a 50-point game, Jeff. And going back to last game, I think that Georgia's probably 20 points better than Clemson. I honestly do. I don't think Georgia good luck beating them this year, Jeff. But Alabama, who played them tough last year, and I was just crediting Georgia for playing a top-ranked team for game 1. If I was a coach, Jeff, I'd be playing Western Kentucky this week too. Roll it out, Jeff. Get out there, beat the crap out of somebody so you're walking with your chest puffed out. In Alabama, I love Saban. I mean, the guy, you can't say a bad thing about Nick Saban. Having said that, Kalen DeBoer, we've got a new coach in Alabama, came from Washington. He's being renowned as a quarterback whisperer, Jeff, with what he did with Mike Penix Jr. We talked about this guy a lot last year. Returning quarterback Jalen Milroe. He's early Heisman favorite, Jeff. Or not favorite, probably, top 5, 6 guys mentioned out there. I think Milroe could have a breakout season. I don't think he has the arm of Penix Jr., but he's an athletic guy. I think Saban kind of got a little out-coached last year when they lost, and Milroe, you can blame him for final play making some mistake or what have you, but I think you need a young, dynamic mind with a quarterback, and what we saw with Mike Penix Jr. I think we could see similar success with Jalen Milroe. That guy finished the season lights out good, and I think we're taking the training wheels off a little bit. I look for downfield play. I look for the field to be open for Milroe to abuse it with his legs. That guy's, he's a runner, Jeff. I love this game. I think we're looking at a 40, 50 some plus point win. And, when you have a coaching change and you go from Washington to Bama and you're replacing Nick Saban, you got to come out and you got to put 50, 60, 70 points on the board, Jeff. You got that Tuscaloosa ain't too patient after having, the greatest college football coach ever, probably Nick Saban. So they're going to come out, they're going to light the lamp left and right, and I think it's going to be Bama all day and night, Jeff. I love this game.
All right, that's a big spread. That's fine. Let's go to our final game, which is actually Sunday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's our first road pick of the season. LSU is hosting USC. LSU is actually giving 4.5, so USC is getting 4.5. But you like the Trojans here. This is an interesting pick. Caleb Williams no longer there. Obviously, a member of the Chicago Bears. LSU typically, I mean, Brian Kelly hasn't had as much success. What do you think about this game?
Jeff, having been on all sides of gambling, like we talk about a lot of Pez's picks, as a gambler, I look at this game and you look at the line and you say, well, LSU, USC's got to travel, soft West Coast team. Vegas is steering us to take USC, Jeff. On paper, losing, the best quarterback in the draft last year with Williams, USC, you'd think, why are they only getting 4.5, right? This is easy. I think USC, Jeff, and I think last year we had a lot of West Coast teams that surprised people. Oregon, Washington, USC, even we get into Arizona, even Utah had some quality football last year. So I think West Coast is starting to confront the SEC a little bit, Jeff. These West Coast teams moving the ball a little bit differently. There's a chance, Jeff, that Miller Moss could be the next Caleb Williams quarterback that's coming in. He played in the bowl game, Jeff. The guy threw 6 touchdowns. He looked like John Elway out there in that bowl game against Louisville last year. 23 for 33, 372. He had a 44-yard bomb, 6 touchdowns. He did throw 1 pick, but I think that USC is coming to play, and they're going to catch they're going to catch LSU in a situation that we're not going to see much, Jeff. LSU possibly losing outright a home game, and we're going to have to look at these numbers throughout the weekend. That's a lean, Jeff, where we're not going to go full bore. We'll announce that over the weekend. If we go 2-0 in those first 2 games, we might have to pull back a little, Jeff. You got to check yourself sometimes. But situationally, I like USC in this game, and I love that quarterback. Teams with stud quarterbacks that have been in the system the year before are what we like, Jeff. And that this kid knows it. I mean, he showed in that bowl game one of the best quarterback games of the season, Jeff. So I like them, and we're leaning that way, and we're probably going to go with them.
All right, so there you go. Our picks as of right now, for sure picks. Georgia over Clemson, even though Georgia's spotting 14 points. Alabama over Western Kentucky, even though Alabama's spotting over 31 points. The lean is USC versus LSU, even though LSU is spotting 4.5 at home. Let's finish up the show, Pez, with a little NFL talk. We talked last week all about the primetime games in week 1. You've already spoken about how you're taking your Eagles. We're going to give you our official picks next week, but rosters have been trimmed. Players are still kind of on the move. What are any final thoughts here about the National Football League?
Jeff, I've got concerns with some of these situations. I'm concerned with Pittsburgh. I mean, we're going pretty deep into the preseason without naming a quarterback. I'm concerned about San Francisco. Best offensive lineman and arguably your best offensive receiver, and long guy can push the ball down the field weapon. I don't know how we look at these teams coming out of camp. And I question a little bit some success out of camp too, Jeff. Is it the regular preseason it used to be? I don't think so. Some of these dudes barely played. One of the things we look for, Jeff, are young teams. Are they coming out of the preseason a little bit too giddy? I love that Hard Knocks, Jeff. I talk about it every week. I'm watching those Chicago Bears, man. They're having too much fun, Jeff. They're excited. I think the coach is having too much fun. It's the preseason, dude, and we have 3rd and 5th string guys playing now, so they're all pumped up. And these are things we're starting to calculate when we're getting into our final decisions, Jeff. And these are the things that are the 5th thing maybe we look at, these kind of intangible situations. But a lot of question marks still in that NFL.
It's going to be interesting, and I think that a lot of people put way too much stock into preseason success and or failures, and we really won't know anything until the regular season starts and the games actually count. So when people are discrediting one team for going 0-3, let's just throw out a team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Are people discrediting the Kansas City Chiefs who also went 0-3? No. So I just think that a lot of people will always try and draw conclusions early in the season, but I think that's also a disclaimer of it's going to be really difficult to gamble early in the season. You want to go with those guaranteed plays And we're not talking about the primetime games. I'm just talking about in general, when you're looking at games, where they played, what are the spreads. It's going to be interesting, Pez, to start this season trying to find and navigate these waters.
And I mean, it's perfectly said, Jeff, but I do think, there are some diamonds in the rough out there that, my colleagues and I with the Pez's Picks family here, I think the Tennessee Titans are a team that could sneak up on people, Jeff.
Okay.
I
can
think
see it.
The quarterback had some significant numbers to end the season last year. He's really under the radar. Will Levi, Jeff.
Levis, Will Levis, Pez. Come on.
The guy loves jeans, Jeff. He's in the Levi family. This guy, I think he wears jeans under his uniform, Jeff. I don't know if people know this, but they own the company. I mean, I'm releasing that here. That guy lit it up to end the season. And, I like teams in small, kind of small media markets, Jeff, who can have a quarterback kind of grow in that way. Where I think in Chicago, the pressure is going to be on Williams. In Denver, the pressure is going to be on that Bo Nix. And I think what Atlanta's doing with Mike Penix Jr. is smart. They're kind of bringing him along. I think that guy's going to be a starter, midway or maybe sooner, Jeff. Who knows with Turd out there, Cousins. But you're going to have to be careful. The first game, Jeff, we're just going to announce it. We're not taking the Baltimore Kansas City game. And the reason why is I know both of those teams are going to be ready. They are going to be full steam. I mean, that it's going to come off like a playoff game. It should, Jeff. I mean, these teams, they don't ever have bad games. They're not taking days off. They're going to be full tilt. And this is like the two toughest kids in school fighting on the first day of school, Jeff. I mean, this is it. I mean, we're looking at premier football. And I think the same's going to be said on Friday. I think my Philadelphia Eagles, you're in a tough situation down there in Brazil. I don't think we've ever had an NFL game south of the equator, Jeff, and it's winter down there. Still haven't gotten a weather report. I can't get anybody on the ground in Brazil to talk to me, but I think that's going to be an interesting situation. I lead veteran teams in those weird situations. I think Pittsburgh's showing, though. You got to have a quarterback. You got to make a decision. And you got to give the guys, some organization in the locker room, who's in charge. But we're going to look to abuse rookie quarterbacks, Jeff. 5 quarterbacks taken in the first 10 picks. If one of them's good, Jeff, that's going to be fantastic news for the NFL. All 5 could be bad for all we know. So we're going to really look for that. And, we're going to be punching the numbers till game time. And, San Francisco, Jeff, that's a fishy game we're looking at Monday. I think teams that lose in the Super Bowl are way more affected than teams that win in the Super Bowl, especially San Fran coming off, a preseason where you got your top guys that are bailing on the team. And we got that lunatic Aaron Rodgers, Jeff. He's going to burn us. I hate betting against that guy. He's like a moron, Jeff. He could go out there and throw 6 touchdowns and 500 yards like nothing, and he wouldn't even be sweating. He'd still be talking about the stars or whatever the hell he's doing in dark tanks. I don't know, Jeff. So it's going to be fun. I can't wait, Jeff. We can't wait.
Don't knock it till you try it, I guess.
I guess so, Jeff. I mean, that lunatic, I hope he's healthy for the season. He's a fun guy to have, Jeff. That's a character right there. That's an NFL purist right there.
I would say the league's better when you have an Aaron Rodgers in it compared to what it was last year when we had the Jets thrust down our throat and the dude played 3 snaps before rupturing his Achilles tendon. So I'd rather see Aaron Rodgers in it, even if he's struggling, than I would him on the sideline and us being forced to watch some god-awful football.
Sneaky trap game of the year, Jeff. I think we could see a New York Jets outright winner out there in San Fran. I mean, we're going to call it early, but that's where we're leaning right now. And that
What's
could even
the spread on that? Do you have that in front of you?
Well, we've got the San Fran right now is laying 4. It opened at 6, and I think we're starting to see adjustment with Ayuk and Williams being out. I think plus 170 New York Jets money line. This is predicated on how well we do, Jeff, right? Smart gamblers, you're not chasing your money. But if you're going in with positive, you got a little bit of extra coin, you could throw down, a half unit bet. So if you usually bet 100 and you take the money line, you put down 50. I mean, you're winning about $75, $80, right? So not a bad investment, but this is all situational too, Jeff. And we got to see how Aaron Rodgers is warming up. The guy's a lunatic. So lunatics can help you or burn you, right?
That's right. And by this time next week when we record, we'll have a much better feel for that game based on the fact that will Brandon Ayuk be on the team? Is he still
Uh,
holding out? Same with Trent Williams. If they're not in the lineup, that's going to change a lot. So you said it started at 6, it's down to 4. I bet if they don't play, that thing might even move under 3. But that's
uh,
just a hunch.
I, well, I mean, you could, West Coast money's weird too, Jeff. You always got to balance that too. San Francisco and those West Coast teams, those most of those people are not watching East Coast football, so you tend to get odd action on West Coast teams, and sometimes adjust the line a little bit in their favor. And
Okay.
that's something we got to watch too. But I agree with you. That number, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen without Ayuk. I don't know what that team does, and especially without the offensive lineman Williams. I mean, that for Purdy, that guy's coming in. He's gun shy. He's got to be, right. I mean, he didn't end the year
Yeah.
too well. So
Well, he's running for his life in the preseason. I mean, my gosh, the guy can't even drop back and plant his feet without scrambling around because he has no protection, no time. So it's going to
seems
be
like
nice.
it's a selfish team to me, Jeff. I mean, we've had multiple years of stars, Boza holding out
Yeah.
there, selfish to the bone, and I do not like selfish teams. Where Atlanta, Jeff, that line's gone up to 3, so something else we're going to be taking a look at here. They get Ayuk, the Steelers. I'm a big fan, Jeff. I hope they do it. I hope.
If you got the Steelers at, +3 on the road in week 1 and they do get Brandon Ayuk, if they get Ayuk, I think that line trends way closer to a pick-'em game than anything. So if you can get the 3 points, I'd get the 3 points, but we'll talk about that next week.
If you got an insider lean and they're signing that guy, I'd jump on it now, Jeff. I think
I
you're
agree.
right. I mean, they could be laying a point with that guy. That offense
Yeah.
opens up completely then.
Changes everything. It really does. So, all right, Pez, it's been a great show. Why don't you give us some final thoughts on the weekend's action?
Well, yeah, let's just take it easy, Jeff. People get excited. There's a lot of drinking I hear on this Labor Day situation. People are putting away the summer. Calm down. Take your phone. Maybe give it to the bartender if you're out Saturday, Jeff. People go nuts on this first opening Saturday. I live in a resort town. The bars, it's one of the best days of the year. Daytime bartenders, Jeff, usually don't do well. It's usually a veteran bartending thing. You take it because you don't want to go to bed at 4 every night. But on this Saturday opening, it's lights out good for bartenders. Tip your bartenders, Jeff. Let's start the year off with good karma. Got to take care of the people, serving you. And that tread lightly if you're drinking and gambling, Jeff. Drinking and doing anything's not good unless you're sitting on a stool, I guess. But tread lightly.
Well said. Well said. All right, Pez, thanks for your time, man. Enjoy the games. We'll keep an eye on these picks. We'll be back next week talking NFL. It's going to be exciting. Thanks for your time, man. We'll see you next week.
All right, later.